Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're going to be looking at a conflict that really shook the world at the start of the 20th century, the Russo-Japanese War.
Yeah, a real clash of empires. It's one of those events that might seem distant, but trust me, its echoes are still felt today, especially in Asia.
Absolutely. And the sources you sent over, wow. Historical analyses, personal accounts. We even got some poetry in the mix. So, listeners, buckle up. We're going deep.
All right, so to really grasp why Russia and Japan went head-to-head like this, gotta set the stage.
Right, the context. Take us there.
Think back to the Boxer Rebellion. China, late 1800s, early 1900s, right? This uprising against foreign influence. Well, the aftermath is key.
Okay, the Boxer Rebellion. So most world powers pulled out their troops from China after that, didn't they? To kind of de-escalate.
Exactly. But here's the twist, Russia. Well, they decided to stay put in Manchuria.
Bold move. Manchuria, that was a pretty resource-rich region, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And strategically vital. Access to ports, resources, a real foothold in East Asia. But holding on to Manchuria, it sent a clear message Russia wanted to expand, to control the region.
Yeah, I can see how that would raise some eyebrows.
You bet. And nobody was more concerned than Japan. They saw Russia's ambitions as a direct threat, especially to their own interests in Korea.
That makes sense. Korea was right in their backyard, strategically vital for Japan.
Exactly. So Japan, they weren't about to just watch Russia dominate. They knew they had to make a move.
So what did they do?
Well, first, they forged an alliance, the Anglo-Japanese Alliance of 1902. This basically meant that Britain, a major power, had their back if things got heated with, say, Russia.
A smart move, securing powerful allies. But things were still pretty tense, weren't they? Like a powder keg ready to blow.
Oh, yeah, big time. You've got two empires, both with serious military might, both wanting the same prize.
Manchuria. And then, boom, 1904 arrives, the year it all explodes.
Yep, that's when the diplomacy went out the window. Russia held on to Manchuria despite the warnings. So Japan decided, no more talk. Time for action.
A surprise attack, if I remember correctly.
You got it. February 1904, the Japanese Navy launched a surprise attack on the Russian fleet at Port Arthur.
Port Arthur. That was the key Russian naval base, right? The one controlling the Yellow Sea.
Exactly that. Japan knew that to win this war, they had to cripple Russia's naval power. And Port Arthur, well, that was the heart of it.
And this siege, it wasn't just some quick takeover, was it? I remember reading about brutal, bloody fighting, like the battle for 203-meter hill.
Ugh. Yeah, 203-meter hill, that was a nightmare. Months of fighting. Both sides desperate for control because, well, whoever held that hill had the high ground perfect for artillery. The casualties, horrific.
Thousands upon thousands. Makes you really think about the human cost behind all the grand strategy and military moves.
No doubt. And it wasn't just on the battlefields, right? The impact rippled back home, too. One of the sources you shared, Isano Akiko, the Japanese poet, she didn't shy away from criticizing the war, did she?
Yeah, her poetry was powerful, raw, honest. You can feel the grief, the anger, the disillusionment so many Japanese people felt as the war dragged on.
In one poem, she even compares soldiers to insects, like highlighting the sheer pointlessness of the slaughter. Imagine the guts it took to speak out like that.
Especially during wartime, when everyone's supposed to be rallying behind the cause, it makes her poetry even more impactful, even more haunting.
Definitely. She got pushback, of course, but she never backed down. Akiko believed war was a failure, a tragedy. Her voice, it's a reminder that even amidst conflict, there's always those who champion peace, always those who question the status quo.
Those voices are so crucial. All right, moving on. The war wasn't just confined to Port Arthur, was it? Mukden, Tsushima, these names also stand out.
Oh yeah, major turning points. Mukden, for example. That was a land battle on an epic scale. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers clashing in Manchuria.
Wow. Can you imagine witnessing something like that? The sheer scale.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
It was a brutal display of modern warfare. Machine guns, heavy artillery, just mowing people down. The Japanese won, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. Huge losses.
And Tsushima, that was a naval battle, right?
Yes.
The one that really sealed the deal.
Yes. Tsushima. This one was decisive. The Japanese Navy, led by Admiral Togo, they utterly crushed the Russian Baltic fleet. That Russian fleet had sailed halfway around the world to engage.
What a journey. What a disaster.
Right. Talk about a miscalculation. The Japanese, they were ready for them. Outmaneuvered, outgunned. The Russians never stood a chance.
So that was the end of Russia's naval power in the Pacific.
Pretty much. Tsushima sent a shockwave. The rising power of the Japanese Navy, the risks of long-range naval operations, it all became crystal clear. And for Russia, well, it was the final straw. They realized they couldn't win.
Which brings us to 1905, the Treaty of Portsmouth. Wasn't Theodore Roosevelt, the U.S. president, involved in the peace talks?
Yeah, he saw a chance to flex some American muscle in the region. Plus, nobody wants a war to spiral out of control, right? So Roosevelt stepped in, helped broker a peace deal.
And what were the terms? Did Japan get what they were fighting for?
Oh, they got a lot. Control of Korea, the southern part of Sakhalin Island, and the Liaodong Peninsula, which included Port Arthur. A pretty big haul.
Sounds like a clear victory.
Well, on paper, yeah. But it wasn't that simple. Remember those sources about public unrest in Japan? Many felt cheated.
Cheated? How so?
They'd make huge sacrifices and expected Russia to pay war reparations, but that didn't happen. So yeah, victory, but a bittersweet one for many.
So much complexity. But zooming out, this war, it wasn't just about territory, was it? It feels like it shifted the whole global landscape.
100%. Imagine this. An Asian power defeating a major European empire. In the early 1900s, that was unheard of. It sent shockwaves across the world.
Yeah, it challenged all the assumptions about global hierarchies, about who held the power. Almost like a preview of things to come, the decline of European colonialism, the rise of new global players.
Exactly. And for Japan, well, this victory fueled their nationalism, their militarism. In a way, it set the stage for their aggressive expansion in the decades that followed.
So many threads connecting to the future. It's clear this war wasn't just a blip on the radar. The Russo-Japanese War, it was a turning point in history.
Yeah.
And its consequences, we're still grappling with them today.
No doubt. It makes you think, right? About power, about the cost of war, about the fragility of peace.
So much to ponder. Thanks for guiding us through this fascinating deep dive. And to you, dear listeners, I say this. The story doesn't end here. Keep digging, explore the sources. The Russo-Japanese War, it's a story worth knowing. A story that still speaks to us today.